Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I can't believe how stupid and silly I was. This whole insane ordeal started about 2 weeks ago when I got a friend request on Facebook from some random guy named Alex Miller. His profile looked harmless enough. The picture was of a normal-looking dude in his 20s, brown hair, average build, nothing remarkable. He had about 100 friends listed, a mix of both guys and girls, and his bio said he lived in a town about 30 minutes away from me. I try to keep an open mind and give people the benefit of the doubt, so even though I had no idea who this Alex guy was, I figured why not accept his friend request. Big, huge, gigantic mistake on my part. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess. Anyway, after confirming the request, Alex sent me a message that same day saying, "Hey, what's up? I think we have some mutual friends, so just wanted to connect." Seemed friendly and innocuous enough at the time, so I sent a polite reply back like, "Hey, nice to meet you." That set off an entire conversation where we casually chatted about various topics like favorite TV shows, music artists we liked, places we traveled, etc. Totally ordinary first online conversation. But then after about an hour of harmless back and forth, the tone started getting weird. Out of nowhere, Alex asked if I had a boyfriend. When I said no, he suggested that we should go out on a date sometime, saying he thought I was really pretty and seemed cool. Major red flags, since we just met an hour ago and knew nothing about each other. I made it clear I wasn't interested in him that way, but tried to be sensitive about it. Guys don't always handle rejection well. But instead of being mature, Alex started bombarding me with increasingly inappropriate messages, asking why I didn't want to go out with him and saying cringy things like, "I could show you a good time," and "Don't you think I'm hot?" Too much too soon there, buddy. Then, and I have no idea how he found it, Alex somehow got a hold of my personal cell phone number and started texting me too. I'm talking long, rambling texts about how we were destined to be together and he couldn't stop thinking about me. I firmly told him he needed to stop contacting me altogether, but he just wouldn't let up. The messages kept coming, and they were getting more and more unhinged. Alex said if I didn't send him provocative nude photos of myself, he would hack into my Facebook account and post the most embarrassing and private photos I had up there for all my friends, family, coworkers, and complete strangers to see. I was freaked out and disgusted that this dude was attempting to sexually extort and blackmail me. Who was this creep? I immediately blocked and reported his Facebook profile, then blocked his number too. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The harassment continued the very next day, except now it was coming from a different Facebook account with a different name, but still using the same profile picture of Alex. This new message said, "Hey, it's still me, Alex. Don't think you can block me that easily," and went on to say he knew I had reported his old account and blocked him, but he would make me regret it. The barrage of threatening messages just kept coming from this new account, saying twisted things like, "You better unblock me or else," and "You don't want to make me angry. I always get what I want." It was clear this guy was unhinged and dangerous. As much as I wanted to just ignore him and his threats, I was genuinely terrified. But I refused to give in to his attempts at sexual blackmail. I just kept blocking each new account he made to harass me. It was like an endless game of whack-a-mole, but Alex the psycho stalker just couldn't let it go. He became more unhinged by the day, escalating from Facebook to finding my Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and even LinkedIn accounts. The creepy threats and blackmail demands kept coming via every channel he could find. I repeatedly reported each of his accounts, but he just kept creating new ones faster than the social networks could shut them down. After an entire exhausting week of being essentially cyber-stalked and living in constant anxiety, I finally went to the police and filed an official report about what was happening. The investigating officer commended me for coming to them, saying I did exactly the right thing and that stalking, harassment, and extortion are extremely serious crimes. With the information I provided, the police were able to track down Alex's real identity. Turns out his name wasn't even Alex. His real name was Dylan Rhodes, and he was actually 32 years old, not 20s like his Facebook page claimed. The cops arrested him at his home and charged him with felony stalking, sexual extortion, making criminal threats, and other crimes. I've ultimately had to give a detailed statement at Dylan's bail hearing about everything he put me through. It was terrifying being in the same room as him again, even with armed cops there too. But the police assured me I was safe and this guy wouldn't be allowed to contact me ever again. Dylan ended up getting sentenced to the maximum of 5 years in prison. The judge also imposed the strictest restraining order possible, prohibiting Dylan from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, workplace, or any family member for the next 10 years. He also can't access or use any electronic device capable of going online or create any social media accounts for the next 7 years. It's an enormous relief knowing that Dangerous Predator is locked up and can't torment me anymore. But the damage is done. I'm a lot more cautious and skeptical now about who I interact with online. My old childhood friend James unexpectedly popped up in my Facebook messages a couple months ago. We were super close growing up, but lost touch after high school when he fell in with a dangerous crowd and started getting into heavy drugs, fights, and all kinds of sketchy criminal stuff. I heard rumors over the years about James being in and out of prison for robbery, assault, hardcore felonies. Not exactly the kid I used to play basketball and video games with as a teenager. It all started on a random Thursday evening when I noticed a new Facebook friend request from an account with the name Jimmy J. The tiny profile picture was of a menacing-looking bald guy absolutely covered in threatening gangster neck and face tattoos. Hard to imagine the scary thug being my preppy, clean-cut pal James from childhood. But curiosity got the better of me. After staring at the request for a few minutes, I decided to accept it just to see if this was indeed my old friend James. Did prison harden him into the intimidating figure staring back from the profile pic? Part of me needed to know. Soon as I confirmed it, a message popped up from Jimmy J saying, "Hey man, long time no talk. This is James. Remember your boy from East Side High?" Yep, this scary felon was undeniably my James, just radically changed from the harmless kid I remembered. We exchanged the usual surprise pleasantries. How have you been all these years? What are you up to now? That kind of surface level catching up. James briefly explained he had just gotten out of prison, did a long bid, but was trying to get his head straightened out. He didn't mention what specifically he was locked up for, so I didn't ask. Figured it had to be something serious though, if James was inside long enough to transform from a clean-cut teenager into this heavily tatted, bald, and rugged ex-con. Our conversation was benign enough at first. I told James about working as an accountant, being engaged to my longtime girlfriend, that we had bought a house on the other side of town. Pretty basic life updates. Meanwhile, he talked about odd jobs, getting back to the gym, meeting up with old crew, nothing that raised red flags. But after the initial pleasant reminiscing, the tone of James' messages started to shift. His questions became oddly specific, almost probing about aspects of my life. He asked point blank how much money I make, what kind of car I drive, where I park it, and what's our garage security like. He also wanted to know my work schedule, what time I leave in the morning, and if I take the same route daily. When James started asking detailed questions about what valuables are kept in my house and whether we have an alarm system, I tried to jokingly suggest it sounded like he was casing me out for a heist. But James just dodged the humor and instead insisted he was just curious as an old pal about how I'm living these days. Right. Over the next couple weeks, James kept reaching out with anecdotes about his prison time, colorful stories about the tough guys he served time with, and how ruthless the gang politics were behind bars. He described getting in bloody fights over the smallest sign of disrespect. He apparently emerged as some kind of imposing prison badass. And in hearing all these intimidating stories, James kept steering the conversation back towards questions about my personal life and routines. It became obvious he was trying to gather intel on me, probing for any vulnerability or opening for criminal advantage. My cagey answers only seemed to encourage him to keep digging. Then, out of the blue one day, James asked if I wanted to make some quick and easy cash by helping him out with a job he had lined up for next weekend. He said a partner of his had cased a warehouse and it would be a big score to hit it up, and that all I had to do was drive the car and stand lookout during the operation. Yeah, I'm not stupid. This amateur mafioso wasn't asking for casual help moving furniture here. James clearly wanted me as the getaway driver for some felony robbery or burglary. I tried to politely decline without directly accusing him of shitty dealings that might set him off. But James wouldn't accept it, pushing harder each day about how this was a chance for us to be partners again and make major bank just like the old days. When I stood firm that I wasn't interested, his messages started getting more threatening and aggressive, saying I was being a little chicken for not agreeing to do this easy job with him. He also ominously mentioned specific places my fiancée frequents: her gym, nail salon, the market near our house, almost as if he had us under surveillance. By this point, alarm bells were ringing loudly in my head. I outright told James this scheme sounded illegal and that he needed to stop contacting me altogether. But he reacted angrily to this betrayal, calling me a coward and fool for dismissing this opportunity for fast money. Over the next week, James kept sending me intimidating and harassing messages, demanding I agree to be his accomplice in this perfect plan crime he had mapped out. He said he had invested a lot of time scoping out the location and plotting every detail, so I owed it to him as his friend to have his back. I stood my ground, despite his threats that I was making a dangerous mistake disrespecting in this way. But then the harassment escalated further. James sent me photos of my house that he or one of his criminal pals had taken secretly. The pictures had captions like, "Don't make a bad choice," and "You're either with me or against me." I was terrified, but still refused to give in to this criminal extortion plot of his. A few nights later, though, my fiancée's car window was smashed and her laptop was stolen. Next morning, I had another message from James saying, "See what happens when you don't cooperate." Now the threat was very real. That was the final straw. I immediately went to the local police station and provided copies of all of the intimidating messages from James. The investigating officers agreed his communications constituted criminal felony stalking, menacing, and coercion. They promised to send patrols to keep an eye on my house and fiancée. Never could have imagined that a simple disagreement in the comments of a Facebook community group post would end up sparking months of being ruthlessly stalked and harassed online. Looking back now, I was really clueless to think ignoring the problem and hoping this faceless psycho stranger would just give up and move on was any kind of solution. But hindsight is 20/20, I guess. This whole unhinged mess started a couple months ago on a routine Thursday morning. I was drinking my coffee and casually browsing one of the local community Facebook groups I'm a part of, just seeing what was new around town. In one post, another member named Karen Klein was complaining about construction noise from a nearby development site starting too early. I simply left a respectful comment along the lines of, "I understand the noise is frustrating, but these guys have tough construction schedules to keep and are just doing their jobs. Starting at 7 a.m. seems reasonable." I didn't think much of it after hitting send. Little did I know what I had unwittingly unleashed. The very next morning, when I opened Facebook, I had a friend request waiting from a random account under the name Sarah Miller. I didn't recognize the name at all, but I'm in various community groups with thousands of members and accept friend requests from acquaintances all the time. I assumed Sarah must just be another one of those I maybe met and forgot. I confirmed the friend request just to give this perceived acquaintance the benefit of the doubt. Huge mistake. Within 1 minute, a chilling message popped up in my inbox from the Sarah Miller account. It simply said, "You should die for disagreeing with my post about construction noise yesterday." Die? I was completely blindsided and freaked out. It took me a minute to connect the dots, but I quickly realized this Sarah Miller must actually be the disgruntled community group member Karen Klein using a fake alias account. What kind of unhinged person creates a whole fake persona just to send death threats to a stranger who merely disagreed with them? I immediately unfriended and blocked the Sarah profile. Problem solved, right? Oh, how wrong I was. Throughout that day, I started getting bombarded with even more friend requests from bizarre fake accounts I didn't recognize, like Samantha Thomas, Susie Davidson, Debbie Roberts. Each account had the same generic profile picture of some blonde woman. I declined these sketchy requests, but it didn't matter as my inbox was soon flooded with more horribly violent messages from each one, saying things like, "Watch your back, I'm coming for you." This deeply disturbed Karen lady was clearly on some kind of vengeful crusade to stalk and harass me simply for daring to politely disagree with her initial post. The barrage of friend requests and intimidating messages just kept coming in endlessly as she made new profiles. sometimes upwards of 15 to 20 fake accounts per day. I was scared out of my mind. No matter how many of the cyberstalker's bongus profiles I reported and blocked, she always just created new ones faster than Facebook could shut them down. I even made my own account completely private, but Karen always found ways to circumvent this, reaching out from accounts of mutual group members, for instance. I started feeling like this maniac's harassment would never end. The daily threats and venom aimed towards me kept escalating, saying things like, "You're going to regret the day you oppose me," and "I'm always watching every move you make." This demented stranger had apparently become obsessed with destroying my life just because I challenged her minor opinion once politely online. The entire situation was unreal. Even changing my phone number and making all social media private wasn't enough to deter Karen's relentless cyber-stalking fixation. After nearly 2 months of constant terror and frustration, I finally went to the local police station and filed an official report about what was happening. The investigating officers were thankfully very understanding, and said cyber harassment is a serious crime they aim to prosecute. But the issue was being able to definitively prove the identity behind all the ever-changing fake profiles. The police needed concrete evidence of who exactly was orchestrating this harassment ring in order to make an arrest. In the meantime, Karen continued churning out new alternative identities daily to keep the threats flowing. Finally, after surveillance, the police managed to track the pattern of IP addresses from the various accounts to a small coffee shop downtown. They began quietly monitoring the shop, and within a few days, spotted a woman in the corner furiously creating brand new profiles. As they moved in to apprehend her, they noticed a chilling collection of firearms and tactical knives in her bag. The police seized her devices and discovered a disturbing photo album full of pictures of me, clearly taken surreptitiously from a distance. Confronted with the jig being up thanks to her sloppy IP trail, the unhinged Karen Klein immediately confessed to the relentless months of stalking. She chillingly revealed her ultimate goal had been to eliminate me for daring to publicly contradict her. Thankfully, the judicial system also recognized the gravity of her heinous crimes. The judge issued a strict 10-year restraining order barring Karen from using any social media or attempting to contact me again. She also received 7 years in prison, plus will have to undergo extensive psychiatric evaluation before release.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.